global AI market in retail is set to skyrocket, growing from $7.14 billion in 2023 to an impressive $85.7 billion by 2032. Now, this was already leveraged by Gartner's 2023 annual CIO and Technology Leaders Survey, and it reveals that nearly half of the industry leaders already leverage AI technologies in retail. So, what's fueling this rapid growth? Is it robotics and automation, voice commerce, blockchain, or a combination of these cutting edge technologies? The acceleration of digital adoption during the COVID-19 pandemic has pushed many brands to enhance their digital experiences. But with the rise of generative AI, brands are poised to transform even further. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Analytics Insight podcast, where we explore the cutting edge of technology. And I'm your host, Priya Dialani. Now, most retail businesses see artificial intelligence as a tool of the future, but in reality, it is essential for addressing retail's challenges in the here and now. Joining us today is Sreeraman Mohan Girija, founder of Fynd, to give insights around how artificial intelligence has a wider influence on contemporary businesses than most companies realize, and it's an integral part of any strategy, not just e commerce or digital efforts. Hi, Sreeraman, how are you doing?
Hi, Priya. I'm doing good. Thank you for having me on this podcast.
It's a pleasure to have you on a podcast with Sri Raman. And of course, when you talk about the impact of AI in different industry, retail has definitely been a very important industry where we have seen the impact of AI immensely. But of course, with the rise of generative AI, how the online commerce and e-commerce overall is scaling up, and what does the future look like? I think we'll be exploring all of this in our discussion today. But before we dive deeper, into our discussion, let's start by telling our listeners more about Find, a pretty interesting name. So if you could brief us about the organization, it would be great.
Absolutely. So Find, we actually run a unified commerce platform. So any sort of technology that a brand or a retailer would need, right from planning their season to manufacturing and making the product to selling that in a store or online to post-sales support. So we provide them with retail technology required for all these parts of your journey. Now, we actually started with in-store technology back in 2012. That time, we had this product called ShopSense Match. It was a large, touchscreen device, a 40-inch touchscreen device kept inside a store. And there was the image of a model on that device, and you could basically mix and match clothes on top of that model to see what goes well together. And if you like something, you can take it to the trial room. And if a product is not available in that store, it would even tell you which store it is available in. Right. So we started with that in-store piece and slowly expanded it into, helping a brand making their inventory essentially omni-channel, which means that brands are selling not just in their store, but online as well, or as well as in marketplaces and their own, e-commerce websites. So we built this sort of, omni-channel inventory model for these brands, which means that our technology sort of expanded from being something inside a store, which is a point of sale system or a clienteling system or an endless aisle, to having components like an order management system, a warehouse management system, and a transport management system. So over the years, over the last 14 years, we have built all the technology a retailer would require, right, up to the retail value chain of getting these products manufactured. That is sort of the latest sort of foray that we have. We have this platform that we are coming up with called FyndCreate, which sort of allows fashion brands to plan their season ahead. And now, usually planning manufacturing and all is probably like a 6-month activity right now in fashion. How can we, with the help of AI, sort of shorten that cycle from 6 months to just like 20 days, 21 days? That's the sort of challenge that FyndCreate solves for a brand. So if you are a D2C brand looking at sort of augmenting your existing fashion design team with a platform that allows you to design much faster, and after designing, converting that designs into a tech pack and then sending it to a manufacturing and having sort of, spare or extra capacity than the current sort of vendors supply you. That's what the platform like FyndCreate enables. Now we have been building this over the last 10 years, and we have working with all the sort of major brands in India, starting off with obviously Reliance Brands and Reliance Retail, which is the largest retailer in the country. Since 2022, Find has sort of started our global expansion. We started with Middle East and Southeast Asia. Right now, this year, we are expanding into UK as well. So that's sort of what Find does and where we are at this point of time.
So glad to know about Fine Sri Raman, and it's always fascinating to understand the core vision and driving force behind organizations that are shaping the industry. And with this overview, I'm sure our listeners have got an idea and a clarity on how Find is contributing to the overall broader ecosystem of retail. With that context in place, we would like to know more about you, Sri Raman. You are also an active angel investor and passionate about supporting early stage startups and founders building from India with active investments in health insurance and ed tech sectors. So, can you tell us more about yourself? How has your journey been till date? And what exactly is your role at Find today?
Yes, so I think my sort of, core strength when I actually started Find was actually in product design. Now that you have to probably go back a few years, like back in 2000, probably when I was around, 14, 15 years of age, I had this like really big interest in design. Especially on how to design websites and things like that, and it's because we had like a small sort of computer science course in our eighth standard, and there was a part of that book that dealt with entrepreneurs in computers, essentially your Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, right? So I read their sort of shorter versions of their stories and biographies, and I really got influenced by that, and that's something that I wanted to do ever since I was a kid. The starting point for me was design for that. So I started doing a little bit of freelance design work when I was in school and in college. In fact, the first sort of customer or client I got was this Australian company called Food Cube Australia. I did the whole sort of corporate branding for them, and that was sort of in my first year in engineering. Of course, at that point of time, did not even have a bank account. Only when I got this customer, I went and and about creating my bank account and things like that. So design was something that I was always sort of passionate about. Pretty much self-taught from from that age, which means that almost like for every day in my life since I was 14, 15, I used to open Photoshop, CorelDRAW, Dreamweaver, and spend hours and hours every day on that. Whatever free time I used to get, I usually used to spend on my computer. So I had a passion for computers, technology, and things like that. And I knew very clearly that I need to start up something on my own. And right after engineering, so I did civil engineering, like most of the the Indian kids of that generation used to do. Then very soon I realized that my passion is in design and not going proper into proper civil engineering or construction industry. So I got this job as a graphic designer. In this company called Pagega.com. It's actually a tech company based out of Mumbai, and I started my design career there. 2 years into that career, I realized that I need to really sort of formalize my design knowledge. Till then, whatever I have done, learned, everything was self-taught. Is there a way I can get a degree in design that can help me in my career? So that's when I decided to join the interaction design course at IIT Bombay for my master's. Right about that, and this was around 2012, and right at that time is when I actually met my co-founders also, Harsh and Farooq. And so while I was doing my 2 year course, the first year itself, I started working along with them on this idea of Find. And my core focus in the initial years was completely on product design and then later on marketing and all sorts of, related activities. For a good period in Find, for the first, I think, 2, 3 years, I was designing products almost, myself. Then I started hiring more and more people into the design team. Right now, we are at around 100 odd people in the design team, which includes product designers, graphic designers, and motion designers. My role personally has morphed from just looking at product design and marketing to things around growth. And then over the years, of course, this is not like a 4 or 5 year journey, right? We're talking about something that I've been doing for the last 14 years. So every few years, I would also like to challenge myself by taking up responsibilities that are probably not my core strengths. So around 2018, I started looking at finance also as a function, which means that there's a lot of learning and relearning that I did in that 1 2 years to understand finance better. That actually gives me a lot of perspective into how to run a business, not just from a design perspective but from growth perspective as well. So currently, if you ask me, I divide I split my days into pixel days and Excel days. So pixel days are when I'm focusing on the product design and those sort of activities, and Excel days are when I'm actually focusing more on the business and growth aspects. That's how my days are actually structured now.
Great. Thank you for sharing that, Sri Raman. And
Mm.
I think, your experience till date truly translates into real impact, whether it's through driving innovation or strengthening teams or managing the designing aspects of the retail solutions and, unlocking new growth opportunities. On that note, I would love to shift the conversation a bit and dive deeper into the larger industry landscape you operate in. Now, as digital and physical retail channels continue to blur, competition for consumer attention has never been fiercer. And today's shoppers expect brands to understand their needs instantly, offering the right product at the right time through the right channel. And somewhere here, I think artificial intelligence is making that possible. A traditional conventional ways of managing retail, whether where we used to focus on price or product selection, I think it doesn't matter now because today if you're meeting shoppers with irrelevant offers or disconnected experiences, you tend to lose the customer. So that's why understanding and serving individual customer needs across channels is the way to move forward. And that's where the shift is coming into picture, where we are focusing on AI driven personalization, and it is definitely a much needed strategic advantage. So how do you think AI is moving beyond the traditional personalization, and it is now moving to create a more intuitive and emotionally aware online shopping experiences?
Yes. So a couple of things there, right? What used to be, traditional sort of personalization, especially in online commerce, used to be very, cohort-based approach, right? You have a set of customers and you sort of tend to bucket them into different cohorts based on the actions that the user has performed. And it was sort of a very rule-based manual process. Somebody's actually, individually sitting and doing these, taking these actions. Which means that there is a good chance that people who are slightly similar but largely different gets grouped into one category when it comes to personalization. Now, what AI allows you to do is that how thin can I actually slice my cohorts without having to depend on someone to do that manually, and then sort of target the users with a shopping experience, whether it is recommending products for them or whether it is giving offers out to them. And you know this, right? Most of the shopping apps earlier, now they have become better at it. But earlier, if you add a few products in your cart and then leave it for a day, a coupon would, come to your, email or as a notification for you to finish that, sort of experience. Can that, instead of that sort of a recommendation or a coupon, be sort of given to the right audience instead of having to spend that budget on every user? How can I sort of limit that spend to really relevant users? Can AI help in that? Definitely, it can do that. Secondly, when it comes to chat experience, if you have seen what ChatGPT and all has done recently in terms of partnerships with Target, Walmart, and companies in US, and soon they will be doing, I'm sure, in India as well, right? What happens in a conversational commerce or a conversational shopping experience is that you're actually getting more signals from a user in terms of probably their state of mind, their current requirement, how urgently they are looking for something, compared to the traditional setup of looking at clickstream data, heat maps, and things like that. So can I actually fine tune the experience for a customer based on the current conversation that is going on? Again, here AI can play a massive role. Then even in terms of the more common sort of experiences, right? You're visiting a shopping app or a website, and there are all these models on that, image of models on that PDP and PLP, the product details page, right? Can we have actually your photo there? This used to be like sort of a dream of a lot of e-commerce companies at one point of time, and it was very difficult to execute technologically at a point of time. And in fact, the Shopson's match that I spoke about, right, the entire premise of the product was that. But the work that we used to do at that point of time was really manual. But now with AI, with the latest release of Nano Banana and all, this is fairly doable at this point of time. So as a customer, when I visit a website, can I actually have the products, can I actually virtually try on those products on my own image? How does that look on my body, right? So that sort of experiences AI can give these days.
Definitely, and I think that was a fantastic insight, Sri Raman. It's really incredible to, understand and learn how AI is not just predicting what we might want, but actually understanding why we want it and then shaping the entire shopping journey around that emotional intent. And of course, this opens up a whole new frontier. How do we balance this deep level of personalization with transparency and trust into picture? Of course, we'll come back to that in a bit. But before that, I would like to understand the importance of design-led thinking in creating AI-powered commerce tools. Now, if we combine AI and design thinking, it definitely has a lot of potential to transform the way we solve problems and innovate. Because design thinking, with its human centered approach, focuses on understanding human needs and creatively addressing human challenges. While AI brings capabilities like data analysis and automation to the table. So, when we integrate AI and design thinking, we can harness the best of both worlds, where we are enhancing our ability to create more meaningful and human centered solutions, which are, of course, effective and impactful. So, why do you think design led thinking is becoming crucial in building AI powered commerce tools today?
Yes. So I'll stick to this, the conversational commerce and the AI, piece associated with conversational commerce. It's also one of the sort of topics I'm really, sort of passionate about. Now, what I have seen, right, when it comes to conversational commerce is that the role of a designer has moved on from simply designing a UI to designing conversations or those experiences around those conversations. Earlier, designing a UI was pretty much sort of a hard skill, right? There is an artifact, a Figma file or a Adobe XD file or any of those, right? The UI is still sort of a hard artifact right in front of you. And it remains the same for the millions of customers that will use your app or website. And it's not going to change based on, the user. But a conversation changes from user to user. Even from time of the day, it can keep on changing. So how does a designer move from designing this hard UI? How does he move from sort of, having this artifact to show at the end of the day, oh, this is the work that I did today, to designing this completely different experience? That is going to be, I think, the next sort of, frontier for product designers, UI designers in the world of e-commerce sort of design. So when you talk about that, there are two aspects here, right? One is the conversational commerce UI, the conversational chat experience you see today. The UI is actually pretty much a chat interface. If you look at the attempts done by any of these large LLM models also, the UI still looks like some words and then cards of products that are displayed to the user, and they basically select from that. That sort of came from the current way of how e-commerce apps and websites are designed. So can we go beyond that to a sort of UI that almost gets generated instantly for that user based on their preferences and all? So these are places where the designer is actually slightly losing control of what the end user will see. So that's going to be really, challenging for you as a designer. Then secondly, a lot of your work as a designer is going to be fine tuning the personas of the AI agents that are going to interact with the customers for their shopping journeys. So how good are you to put earlier, it used to be designing pixels. Now the designer is has to design, conversations. So that's or design actually words and conversations. So that's going to be sort of the shift. And as sort of, designers, we do have the right skill set to sort of move from designing UIs to conversations. It's about, just getting all the pieces together.
Very well said, Sri Raman. I think you said it right that design is not about just creating design, but it's about designing conversations and with consumers, and it's no longer just a creative preference. It's becoming a strategic imperative in the AI powered commerce. So. And it's interesting because when we are adopting AI today, we are trying to make it AI more usable, trustworthy, and intuitive for people across all touch points. And that's where I think design comes into the picture, where it's bridging this gap and translating intelligence into real world value. Moving ahead, of course, I think e-commerce has one of been the leading adopters of AI, and we have seen various use cases. We discuss about personalization. We have smart logistics and sales and demand forecasting. I think with more and more consumers gravitating towards online shopping, it's more important than ever for e-commerce brands to adopt AI if they want to keep up with their customer expectations. My next question is from the developers side and perspective, Sri Raman, that when you guys are developing certain AI powered solutions, what are the biggest friction points when integrating AI into these modern platforms? And what do you think will define the next decade of AI in commerce tooling?
So sort of building upon the answer from the previous conversation, the biggest challenge I see even today is that in production, right, there is only a certain extent to which you can control the AI output, and this is again in things in like conversation design and things like that, right? You can fine tune the persona to a bit to control the kind of answers that the AI will output there, but hallucinations still continue to be a problem with most of these models. The solution that a lot of people propose is to, fine tune models, especially taking, open source models and fine tuning them for your particular requirement as a developer. The challenge there again is that you sort of tend to get the feeling that in 6 months, whatever you fine tuned will not be state of the art because that's the rapid pace at which models are getting released. I think every 2 months, there is a major release by all the LLM providers. So, with this speed and with the reality that customers, the brands and retailers, everyone is asking for more and more of AI, how do you sort of set up the guardrails and the evals before sort of pushing something into production? These are the sort of challenges that developers face at this point of time. And I think in terms of commerce tooling and future proofing things like that, I really believe that building your platforms in such a way that all these models, whatever gets released latest, can be sort of instantly plugged into your tech stack. That would sort of give a lot of leeway and actually makes your platform also look really updated. I think over the next decade, if you're building AI, sort of in a commerce tooling platform, that's one of sort of the base requirements that you will have. You need to be pretty much model agnostic in your approach.
Definitely. And I think when we're talking about AI in e-commerce, I think the one thing that keeps coming back is orchestration, how well the platforms can unify data, content, and decisioning across channel. And that definitely is going to be a real differentiator in the next decade. Now, we'll dive into that in a moment and, talk about something that we discussed earlier, that it's important that how we are keeping the human in the loop approach when designing these customer data platforms. And that's when, the concept of balancing automation and human touch is really crucial for businesses. Now, the global customer data platform market is projected to grow to, almost $13 billion by 2032. So I think that's clear that with the integration of AI, which it's kind of changing how companies interact with their customers. So the key to this growth lies in striking the perfect balance between automation and human touch. And you have also mentioned that about that in earlier of your responses. So how can brands balance this AI driven automation with the human touch to maintain that trust and authenticity and not sound like very robotic all the time?
I think the starting point for this could be, by really identifying or labeling those conversations that are AI assisted. So the customer also, when they interact with the brand, they are well aware that are they talking to an AI agent or a human? So that itself is a good sort of starting point for trust because as these models become really better. Even the voice models and all are becoming really really better these days. It's becoming almost like impossible to identify a human conversation from an AI conversation, right? So labeling and identifying as the brand that these conversations are AI assisted or AI generated could be a good starting point for a customer to brand trust. Secondly, in terms of from a retailer or a brand perspective, I think there is a definite need to understand and accept that this is sort of the new reality. AI is here and it is here to stay, which means that a lot of the work that teams within these retail organizations do are going to change rapidly, significantly. And the way these teams are composed or organized around the current sort of workflows need to sort of start getting reorganized based on this new reality. It's very again going back to this conversational commerce bit, right? Currently, if you look at any of these brands or organizations, their teams within these organizations are also structured around channels. Or this is for a marketplace team. This is the D2C or the commerce online team. This is the team that looks at app. That sort of structure is going to really go away. What if these conversations are happening even outside your app for that matter, right? A lot of the shopping journeys are going to now get started, let's say in a chat GPT or a perplexity. So how do you control that experience then? You cannot not have a response to that, right? So I think a lot of those teams getting reorganized in these retail organizations around this reality is yet to happen. And I'm sure that that'll also start happening, which requires these brands also to accept that, this AI is here to stay.
Definitely, I agree with you, Sriraman. And I think honestly, in a world where consumers are, they are also getting increasingly aware of AI generated interactions. So maintaining that sense of empathy and genuine connection, I think, becomes even more important. And that's when they need to have a strategic framework in terms of balancing the human touch and definitely not letting go of the automation or the benefits that AI brings to the table. I think when we're talking about AI and other technologies, retailers will move forward in aligning with individual preferences and driving engagement. So, one last question for you, Sri Raman. How do you think the retail store of 2035 will look like, according to you?
So predicting the future is like, it's very tricky business. I think in 2012 also when we started Find essentially all the VCs, everyone used to ask us, how do you think the future of retail is going to be 10 years down the line? Well, honestly, it hasn't changed much. A lot of the technology, has become better probably. But I think in 2035, with what's happening with, AI, personalization and things like that, a good starting point would be a very simple one, right? How about the store reps and the brand itself recognizing or knowing that you have walked into the store? Like today, if you walk into brand store that you usually shop a lot online, and then you walk into a store, there's no way the store rep recognizes you or knows your shopping history, and they end up recommending products probably that you have already bought online. So that is a very sort of disconnected experience that exists today. Is there some sort of a unified customer view that simply brands can have? That itself is sort of a good starting point. So the moment I walk into a store, the store rep is, of course, this is based on, of course, the privacy angle and all is covered properly. But what if the store rep really knows what I have in a shop already online? What is there on my wish list? Can I sort of curate their experience? It also becomes a lot more about, offline experiences. If you see post-COVID also, right, the things that are working a lot are actually physical real world experiences. Can you really make walking into a store a good experience for the customer? That itself would be like a good starting point for a store of the future.
Definitely, and I think AI will undoubtedly grow in a speed and precision, and it is destined to become embedded in our daily lives, creating an increasing divide between businesses that utilize AI and those that don't. But at its heart, I think commerce overall remains a human endeavor, and e commerce must not lose sight of that. While AI may guide the ship, the ultimate destination remains unchanged, creating meaningful, engaging, and trustworthy customer experiences. Thank you so much, Sri Raman, for taking out the time and effort to be on our podcast today and helping us understand that. Moving ahead, I think retailers and brands should focus on striking a delicate balance between innovation and ethics, creativity and automation, and personalization and privacy. And e-commerce success will hinge on how well businesses navigate this equilibrium. Thank you so much, Sri Raman. It was lovely chatting with you.
Thank you, Priya. Same here. Lovely chatting with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, this is for our listeners. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion around the impact of AI in the retail sector and the role of design led thinking and maintaining the balance of automation and human touch. Stay tuned for our upcoming podcast, and you can view all our previous podcasts on Spotify and other leading platforms. Thank you so much.